TT coming, TT coming, TT coming, TT coming, TT coming, TT coming. Y'all can't see, but I'm popping it. I'm dropping it and I'm popping it. Y'all, hi. Welcome to another podcast episode for What Else is Going On podcast. I am your host, Taria. Y'all, I was just listening to JT coming, hyping myself up. I'm telling you, I was in here getting it. I was JT coming, TT coming, TT coming. And I was throwing it back in this chair, y'all, even though y'all hear it squeaking, right? Anyway, y'all, thank you so much for coming back for another podcast episode. We are about to get into Orange County right now. So listen, I am really pushing through on trying to not appeal to my lower self when it comes to some of these housewives, to not satisfy that lower self when talking about some of these housewives. And I don't quite know if I'm going to be successful at that. So I'm just warning y'all, not even warning, I'm just laying myself prostrate. If y'all grew up in church, y'all know what I meant when I say prostrate, or if you go to church or what have you, especially a Black church, you know what I'm talking about. I'm laying myself before the council to let y'all know, yeah, this one wasn't easy. But let me tell you, I am loving the Real Housewives of Orange County. I'm enjoying that it's not so heavy, right? It's not trying to dig up information on somebody's grandmom who used to date a pimp, or somebody's mama who used to be a pimp, or somebody's daddy who used to date somebody's mama that used to be a pimp, or somebody like, it's not like so salacious and so dark. Now that I think about it, maybe those storylines wouldn't be bad either. No, I'm just joking. But it's not heavy, right? It's just stupid stuff. Now, I am getting a little tired, I'm going to tell you all up front, of this story with Katie. It's like, okay, I'm going to need you to move on after this. You and Heather, I'm going to need y'all to move on after this. But let's get into the episode. Now, before we get into the episode, again, this is a podcast episode. So if you're watching, please, if you have not already, make sure you go to wherever it is that you listen to podcasts, and also follow the podcast over there as well, not just on YouTube. Apple, Spotify, wherever, Amazon Music, type in What Else is Going On, and you will see me. If you're listening, I'm going to ask you, please, if you could head over to YouTube, type in WeGo, WEIGO podcast, and subscribe to the podcast over there. I would be incredibly thankful. It's a good way to help the podcast continue to grow and flourish. All right, so let's get into this episode, y'all. I took my notes. Okay. Sean, these letters looking smaller and smaller. Boy, I tell you. All right, let's go. So first up, the episode starts with Heather and Terry. They're at the LA penthouse. They start out trying to pick their house out, and they're pointing like, is that our house over there, or is that Drake's house? Letting us know they live in Drake's neighborhood. Listen, I'm here for it. Let us know. I like these wealthy housewives. I've said it before when recapping OC, and I'm going to say it again and probably continue to say it. If you're watching Dubai and loving the wealth that you feel like you're seeing over there, don't come over to Orange County talking about Heather's wealth is disgusting. I love it all. Okay. So Heather says to Terry that she got a call. Well, they're in their kitchen having a drink. She says, let's go out to, is it the balcony, right? She puts on her beautiful fur, and they have their wine glasses, and she says to Terry, I got a call from Cassandra today. She has someone that wants to lease the apartment that they're in. She says, what are we going to do when we move out of this house? And she says in her confessional, she would love to live in the penthouse, but she has two youngest. The penthouse is 2 bedrooms. So, of course, one for her and Terry, and then there would only be one left. And her two youngest that are not in college, Kat and Ace, they're at the age where they need their own rooms. So she says that, again, she would love to live there. She doesn't even shower at the other house. She showers at the penthouse, gets dressed there. Terry said he's made 4 friends in the gym. We know that it's closer to his office. And Terry says, be honest, you poop here. And she looks at him and says, I don't do that. Now, I know she's being facetious, because if you really don't poop, then you are full of Heather. And you my girl, so I don't want to believe that of you. So then she says, but if she did do that, that would be the place to be. Child, some of us take supplements so that we can do that. Okay. Y'all don't need to know my business. Moving on. So she fills Terry in on what's going on with the ladies, flag football, how she was the ref. Terry was like, how are you going to ref something you don't know anything about? And she says, well, she thought the outfit was cute. She says she's telling who doesn't get along with who's avoiding who, but how she's good with everyone. And he says, why do you think that is? I said, come on, Mr. Dubrow. After all these years, you know what your job is on this show. Ask these questions. So she says she thinks it's because after Terry had his stroke, basically, she don't care about BS no more. She moved along. Then they show a flashback to last year's reunion. I believe it was last season's, right? Where she talked about Terry's stroke and how she had scheduled her breakdown to happen. And sure enough, she tells us in this confessional that when they went to the beach, when they went on vacation, she went to the beach and she walked down to the beach and just let it all out. She cried, she let it all out, got it out of her system. Then as she was walking back from the beach, she said she started celebrating what was. And I'm taking that to mean she let it all out. Like, I could have actually lost him. Like, she let it process. Because, sometimes, especially as women, we don't really let things hit us, or we try not to. We're like, oh, okay, this, boom, we got it, handle this, whatever, whatever. But she said that she basically let it hit her. She processed it. And then she started being grateful for what was. Y'all, hold on. I didn't realize I didn't plug up this computer, and I'm 50% charged, and I would scream if I got through halfway of this and it died. Okay, there we go. So she started celebrating for what was Terry being there with us. And as they're looking over the balcony to the beautiful LA, Terry says, what a life we have. Heather says, thank God you're here to see it all. Then they joke about who Heather would be with if he wasn't there. And Terry said, the next man will probably be better looking. But during that, I almost forgot to mention, during that, she talked about the 360 app. And she said, basically, the 360 app is what what saved Terry's life. Her son logging in, that saved Terry's life. And so because she's talked about it so much, 360 reached out to do a partnership. And now if her talking about it and partnering with this 360 app can save lives, then God is good. Next up, Tamra, Emily, Gina, Katie, and Jen go out for a girls' night. Tamra's walking out of her house. It's raining. She's like, what better way to celebrate than it raining? She rents them like a little party bus. They pick up people along the way. Heather and Shannon are not invited, i.e. they were not filming, it seems like, with them right now, right? So they show a flashback of Emily calling Tam, or we don't know who called who. We just know Emily and Tamara were on FaceTime. Emily says we should plan a night out for Gina, considering everything she's going through with Travis. So they do that. They get on the bus. They go to Katie's house to pick her up. And this is where I struggled with keeping it together, because the way I wanted to unleash on this person. So they get to Katie's house. They have to use the bathroom, Gina and Emily. Gina's going to go into the house. Emily says she don't have time for all that. She wants to get the girls' night show on the road. She doesn't have time to meet husbands and kids. So she proceeds to walk over to a bush on Katie's property. Tamra is guarding her. Of course, they do the Lucy and Ethel shenanigans where they fall it all over. Looked so staged. And it may not have been, but just to me, that's what Tamra gives me. Every time I see Tamra, it feels like lights, camera, action, except for when she was eating that pizza at flag football. But anyway, so Emily pulls down her pants and pees. We see Gina inside. She meets the people, whatever, uses the bathroom. Emily proceeds to piss outside. I ain't seen not near napkin. So here's my thing. If you pulled your pants straight down and didn't touch your vagina, didn't do nothing, and pulled and peed and pulled them straight up, there's no way that you shook all of that residue off. So either you have pissy hands or a pissy puss, and either one is nasty. Then you gonna get your behind. You ain't washed your hands, ain't wiped your vagina, ain't gonna get your behind back on that bus. sit next to them girls, and then be all out at the bar, touchy, hugging. Girl, that is so nasty. I used to hate when Sonya did it. I can see sometimes there's an emergency. You might not be able to make it. I got to pee outside. I got some napkins, and then get to the next place to wash my hands. Me, I would have probably went in the house, even if I had to employ my Kegels to hold it. Okay. Or been like, one of y'all better run in there. I'm about to pee and I'm gonna be out here squatted until somebody bring me some toilet paper. I wouldn't even done all that. But I'm just saying, I felt like saying, like, what girl, what is wrong with you? Why would you do that? But I mean, this is the same Emily that told us she didn't drank from her dog's bowl, that was drinking the espresso at Heather's party and then spit it straight out on the floor. That, oof. That was all at Heather's bruncheon last year, mouth wide open. Just, that was, I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry, y'all. That was so nasty to me. Again, either you have pissy hands or a pissy puss. Neither one is a good look. Child, I wouldn't eat nothing at Emily's house ever, ever. You ain't got, nope. Child, you drinking out dog bowls, ain't wiping or washing. Sometimes, I want nothing from your house. Y'all, was so mad. I was pissed off, pun intended. I truly, really was. Anyway, so now they are on the Sprinter, I believe. Emily brings up, oh no, I'm sorry. So now they get to the bar. Emily brings up having lunch with Katie, and Katie has more and says Katie has more information about Heather and the paparazzi. So they flash back to Emily, Gina, and Katie. And Katie says there was bad press. I'll try to make sure I was still recording. Katie says, so there was bad press about Heather and Terry. So she texted to her friend who's in charge of all the paparazzi photographers and said, is this true? Did she hire a photographer to come take a photo of her? And he responded, yes. So to me, it seems like, again, Katie's doing what she's accusing Heather of doing to her. Anyway, in this flashback, Gina says she's going to get herself in trouble, but talking to the ladies, and they just all kind of laugh. Now we're back at the bar, and they talk about Heather and how the Disneyland photos of Terry and Heather were staged. And in her confessional, Tamara says, she, meaning Heather, yelled at me and yelled at Emily. Now, y'all know Heather did not yell. She may have got a little heated, but Mr. Bro did not yell. But anyway, Tamara then says to the ladies, she wants to make sure it's very clear to the viewing audience. So you're telling me she alerted the paparazzi that she's going to be at Disneyland. And in her confessional, Tamara says, now, basically, Heather lied to the ladies. And now here comes Katie, like a gift from God. And I mean, it makes me feel a little vindicated because they feel like Heather lied about it last year when it was brought up. So Tamara then says, so you have proof of that? And Katie says, I have a screenshot of it. And Tamara raises her hands as if to say, hallelujah. So all the ladies are really giddy and excited about, they going to get Heather. They going to get Heather. In the meantime, Gina is looking like, why? Why do we have to do this? Why? Katie then shares with the table what she shared with Emily and Gina, and the screenshot. She shared it again. And she talked about it again and says that she guessed Heather sent it to Heather, and Heather must have sent it to her friend that's over the paparazzis. So this person that's head over all the paparazzis, they even are on speed dial for Kim Kardashian. Tamara says, and Heather too. Katie says she has his information, meaning Heather has the paparazzi's information. Emily says, so she denied it all. She lied to all of us. Tamara says, are you saying anything to her? So Gina was basically saying, she knew and didn't even say anything to Emily. And she says I told Katie, I told you not to say anything. I knew, I didn't even say anything to her, meaning Emily. I told you not to say anything. And Emily said, because she's so protective of Heather. And Tamara says, who cares? Gina says she's going to care, like Heather's going to care. Katie says, so I thought it was really silly and stupid. So I'm like, I heard that she denied it. Who did you hear it from? The TV show last year? the episodes on Peacock from last season that you rewatched before you joined the show? Who who told you that there was an issue in the group from last year about Heather in these paparazzi photos? Anyway, because think about it. You weren't a part of the group, so clearly you watched the show unless somebody told you. When you didn't know these ladies, Gina was the only one that you knew through Sutton, and you just met Gina. You ain't known her for that long. So how did you know that it was a discussion unless you heard it from the Peacock app? Because why else would you be pushing this? Anyway, she said, I heard that she denied it. And I was like, why didn't she just own it? Who cares? Again, how did Katie hear that she denied it? Tamara is in her confessional and says Heather doesn't like surprises. She doesn't like to be called a liar. Emily has to pee again, child, back at the bar. At least this time she's using the toilet. Tamara is in her confessional and says, wait a minute. Tamara is in her confessional. Oh, and says bye to Katie. Like, you're talking about Heather and lying in the paparazzi. Bye, Katie. Nice knowing you. That's what Heather says after they done hyped her up, right? Katie says she tagged me in her birthday photo, and Jen says that could have been a mistake. And Gina said it was. And then Tamara says, so wait, does she follow you? Katie said no. And Gina said, no, it was an accident. But she clearly was looking Katie up. Like she was looking Katie up, but she believed, like she clearly was looking Katie's Instagram account up, but the tag was definitely by accident. Now, in her confessional, Katie says, I definitely do not think it was an accident that Heather tagged me 12 hours after she posted her birthday post. When I asked her if she meant to tag me in her Instagram, she basically acts surprised. So then they show a flashback to Katie, Heather, and I believe Gina getting their nails done. And Katie says, I woke up one morning and I was tagged in your birthday post. Heather pulls it up, y'all, and she's looking. If y'all are watching on YouTube, you can see she's looking. She is really looking, right? And she says, oh my God, that's so weird. In her confessional, again, Katie says that Heather said, I don't even know how to tag people. So then they show Heather back in this flashback saying, I have a social media person, so I haven't been doing my own reposting. In her confessional, Heather says she was wearing a Givenchy dress when Julia, who is her social media person, was typing it in the GI, like Givenchy, GI, and Janella, Katie's last name, GI. Katie's last name must have popped up. So back in the flashback, Heather said, first, I'm going to follow you and then I'm going to untag you. Now, Katie says in her confessional, when you're called out, why not just own it? So then Tamara back at the table, because now we're back at the bar in present day. Tamara says you can't just tag somebody you don't follow. You have to write their name out. Now, that is not true. In the search bar, if she was looking up Katie, she probably didn't go and like delete it out of her search bar. So I could see how it came up. But also, Corey, his Instagram is CBR. It starts out CBR, right? C Breezy CBR. Chris Bassett is CB. So one time I was posting about the podcast, and I normally always tag Corey in it. I hit CB. They both popped up for me. And I think I might have looked at Chris's account for some reason, like before then. But either way, they both popped up. And I clicked on it, went on about typing my caption. And before I hit post, I went to look back at it just to make sure that I spell everything right. Because normally I have to go back. I use voice note for the caption and it'll miss something. Got me looking like I can't spell. I was a great speller. But I use voice to text, and Siri, she don't like my voice. Anyway, so when I looked back and checked who I had tagged Chris Bassett. So I thank God I didn't post it, because he would have been like, Katie, why is she tagging me, if he even saw it, right? So then I removed that tag and made sure that I tagged Corey. So you can tag somebody, especially if you've looked them up, which Heather did admit later on. If you look them up and they're still in your search history, and I don't even think they have to even be in your search history. You could have looked at them once and it'll pop up. So that is possible, Tamara. And I know you know that. Okay. Anyway, and a lot of people that I've had on this podcast and I've interviewed, housewives, not housewives, if we don't, a lot of times we don't follow each other until after the interview, or I don't normally follow people until they like follow me. Like I have to really be interested um to follow you. And so I've been able to tag housewives that I didn't follow, unless the account holder has it where you can't just tag them. Because you know how you can take it, put it on where somebody can't just tag you or what have you. So that too, but you can tag folks by accident. Anyway, child, Emily talks about them dancing on the bar to the bartender and goes over to Tamara and says, I'm gonna let you live out. I think she said your coyote ugly dreams, and they get to dancing on a bar. Now, maybe it's just me. I'm 47, so I'm around these ladies' age. I have never, and again, maybe it could have been the places that I went to. I've never danced on a bar. Neither have a lot of my girlfriend. Like to get to the bar, to be hopping up on the bar and dancing on it. I've never done that. Have y'all? Let me know if you have. Child, when they started spraying folks, I said, if I was there, I would have been livid, especially if I had like scoffed at my edges. And I don't even care. Don't be spraying my clothes and spraying that all on me. And you know, they was all sticky. That was soda or whatever that they were spraying on people. I said, they are crazy. Anyway, like I said, Tamara started spraying folks. Hopefully the patrons are okay with it. They probably were. You know, it's the housewives. Um, Gina then asked Katie while they were at the table, why did you tell them? And Katie says, you're right. So as they're dancing on the bar, Katie is in her confessional and says, I don't put my vag in people's faces unless it's Matt's, because the way the ladies were dancing. Gina says in her confessional, I've definitely put in some quality work on the bar. I'm retired and I'm happy about that. Again, like I said, I've never danced on a bar ever, 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 ever. So as the night goes on, Gina and Emily are talking, and Gina says to Emily, this whole thing with Katie, I don't know what to do about it. Emily says, about what, like, what about? Gina says, I feel bad that everybody knows about this Heather situation. Emily says, Katie needs to eat some effing Wheaties. She needs to drink a protein shake, and she needs to like focus because Heather's going to effing destroy her. Girl, you all for Katie talking about it though, so stop it. Now we go to Shannon and Vicki. Okay, so Shannon is at home, child, sweeping something up on her floor. Archie, it's this red stuff on the floor. I said, did he drag an animal or something? And it's bleeding out. I don't know. Anyway, did he bring? She said, did he bring something in? Vicki then walks in it. Child, as soon as she walks in, she says, we have so much to catch up on. I have a staph infection. Shannon says a staph infection. And Vicki says the doctor didn't want me to leave the hospital. And I checked myself out because I'm very, very busy. Child, immediately, was it Quad or Mariah? I am very busy. Very, very busy. That's who I thought of when she said that. Vicki asked Shannon, does she want to see it in the bathroom? Child, and see, this is where icky Vicki. She then says if she squeezes her stomach, yellow pus will come out. I'm telling you, y'all, certain franchises, they make you not be able to eat when you watch the show. And I don't want OC to be that show for me because I like to enjoy that with dinner, but ew. Anyway, she said the doctor asked her how was her vagina. And she's like, my vagina's perfect. And I guess the doctor wanted to know if the yellow pus was coming out of the vajayjay. And she said no. Thank God for that. Shannon looks very taken aback, like, okay. She said, geez, Vicki, it's God's way of telling you to slow down. Vicki says, no, I'm going full speed. So in her confessional, Vicki says, I don't want to slow down because then you're sedentary. The grass is going to grow around you and you're not going to be able to see through it. I like being busy. I'm a type A girl and I've got enough money to retire if I want to. But what would I do? I said, do she got enough money to retire because she allegedly committed elder abuse, financial elder abuse on the people that are already retired? Allegedly, allegedly, allegedly. Although Vicki has come out and said, emphatically denied it. She said she did not take them people's money. It's a yearly charge, and these people know that. That's what she said. Anyway, Shannon talks to Vicki and says, we have a lot coming up. Vicki says, what are we going to do about our show? Up on the screen comes a little blurb from OK Reality TV, and it says, I didn't do anything. Tamra Judge gives glimpse into twisted drama that led her to back out of the Trace Amigas comedy tour. Shannon said, I had a very short conversation with Tamara. So she tells Vicki about the conversation that they had, I think, episode 1, when Shannon had walked out of Heather's brunch. And Shannon's like, I'd be more than happy to talk. And Vicki and Tamara's like, no, I don't want to talk. So Vicki says, okay, then I don't want to talk to you either. Shannon said, fine, fine. She said, it's just that we finally had the showdown, you know? Vicki said, I think we can still do it. And Shannon said, well, we've worked hard on it and that the Trace Amiga shows were very fun. She said, our first show we sold out in 3 days. Vicki says, well, I'm excited about it being just you and me. It'll be like, then she says, child, it'll be like Ethel and Louise and Thelma and Louise and Ethel and Lucy and Laverne and Shirley. God bless. There was only 2 all the time anyway. That's what Vicki says. So there's Shannon's voice, like a voiceover while showing a video of the Trace Amigas. And Shannon is saying, we sang, we did skits, we sang, we danced, we did skits, we had audience participation, just kind of like a variety show. And I was excited about where we could go. Then we see Vicki and Shannon sitting down, and Shannon has her glasses on, and Vicki, I'm sorry, wait a minute. Sitting down, Shannon has her glasses on. Oh, and Vicki says in her confessional, Tamara didn't have the balls to call me or Shannon to tell us she didn't want to be a part of the show anymore. She says that Tamara has vinegar. Woof, just saying it like, you know, you get like a taste in your mouth like vinegar. Vicki says she has vinegar running through her veins and a black heart. So good riddance. Now I'm going to say something. I do think it is messed up if Tamara decided, like, here they all are thinking that they're going to be a part of this Tres Amigas, that they've been doing shows, and then all of a sudden they get word, whether via social media, Tamara's giving statements to like OK TV or whomever she's giving statements to. If that's the way that Vicki and Shannon found out, she owed them more than that. They were supposed to be friends. And we know in the first episode, Tamara tells Jen and Emily when they were at the gym that she couldn't do it anymore because she felt like Shannon was lying and Shannon was still drinking when she was telling the world she wasn't. So she didn't even say anything to Shannon about that. So it's like, you were part of this thing, and we find out from someone other than you that you're no longer part of this thing that we've put money into and that we've worked on really hard. I do think that's foul. So I do think now, maybe if there were cameras filming it, maybe Tamara then would have let them know. Anyway, Shannon and Vicki call Paris, who is their tour manager. Vicki said, let's talk about the show. We're going to just say it's the Shannon and Vicki show without the Trace Amigas. Shannon says, is there a lot of fallout because Tamara is not a part of it anymore? Paris says, yeah, I think there's some fallout, some mental fallout and some financial fallout. Vicki says she owes us for that, right? Shannon in her confessional says, this is a business. It's a way to make additional income. I've got 3 kids in college. I'm still single. It was devastating to me. Vicki then says to Paris, I'm really upset with her. You don't do that in business. We had an LLC. We had merchandise. I'm pissed. So I do think that too. And I wonder, would they be able to, and I don't think they will, but go after her if they put in all this money for the merchandise, the LLC, all of that, and then that say Trace Amigas, and now they don't have a third person. She backed out without letting them know. Would she be liable for any costs associated, any loss that they're taking because they can't use that merchandise anymore? It's an interesting question. So Paris says, I think you'll be fine. I do think you guys need to get your hustle on promoting though. Child, Shannon and Vicki start singing just the 2 of us. And then Shannon goes, Trace Amigas. And Vicki kind of looks at her. Then she puts her hand on her shoulder, and then they both sing Dos Amigos. Child, Paris looked like the light just went out behind his eyes. Like, all that money I was set to make with the Trace Amigas just slowly faded to black. So even Archie was like, now, wait a minute. What is this? Shannon says, okay, well, thank you, Paris. We'll talk to you soon. And they hang up. Vicki says, okay, so I'm going to put my lipstick back on because it came off when I was drinking all of my 400 pills. I said, what are you? Maybe that's why you got the yellow pus, or it's to heal the yellow pus, because Lord knows. And why are you drinking the pills? Are you mixing them up? Are you putting them in a smoothie just to get them down? Anyway, Shannon says, okay, well, I have to tell you something. And Vicki says, what? Shannon says, I got a letter from a lawyer representing John Jansen. I love how when these people talk about John, it's John Jansen, like it's one name, like not a first and a last name, but it's just a one name. She says, and the letter said, I owe him $75,000. Vicki said, oh, please, you owe John. And then Vicki went right into like friend mode, like, oh, I'm about to air him out. She said, you paid for all the upgrades on all the flights, all of his clothing, all of his boat paraphernalia. And that's just the stuff I know. He's a jerk. Shannon said, what is he trying to do? Vicki said, he doesn't work, right? I said, come on, Vicki, air it out. Shannon says, I don't know what his work. I don't know what his job status is. Vicki said, when you guys broke up, he wasn't working. I said, okay. Now, in her confessional, Vicki says he's a bad guy. I believe she either said that to Shannon right before she got into the confessional or in the confessional. She said, it wasn't my place to say anything. It was like somebody telling me that Brooks wasn't good for me. Then, of course, they show flashbacks of Tamara saying, I don't think Brooks is good for you. And Vicki saying, how do you know what's good for me? And Tamara screams, that's my opinion. Child, in that clip, the look on Shannon's face is hilarious. Like, what is going on here? I also, by the way, I loved Heather when those bangs, when they showed that flashback. I was like, yes, Heather. I remember she cut them like right before the reunion, I believe. I remember her saying. So back in her confessional, Vicki says, we're not going to listen. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. Wait. Oh, yeah. So basically, Vicki was saying she always knew, but it wasn't her place to tell. Like when they tried to tell her that Brooks was a bad person. And then back in her confessional, she's still talking about this. And she's saying, we're not going to listen. We got to find out for ourselves. So back in the scene, Shannon starts crying and says, he's going to say, I owe him $75,000. Do you know that if you go to court, it will cost more than $75,000 to pay attorney's fees? Vicki says, I know. In her confessional, Shannon says, he knows how much I contribute to my kids, and that he would do this is unbelievable to her. He's an a-hole. Then she says, sorry, I guess, sorry for getting upset. And she's like crying real tears because you can like see them. Vicki says to Shannon, that really bothers me. Shannon says, yeah, he's trying to hurt me. So Vicki goes, and makes like the throw up sound. We know Vicki is famous for that, child. So Vicki then says, and I don't know if this is a jump, and I believe that Vicki probably jumped right into this. Lord, Vicki is an Aries just like me. So is Shannon, y'all. Anyway, great representation on Bravo. Vicki says, can I ask you a question? Why does that boob look smaller than that boob? Then they start laughing, and Shannon says, is it noticeable? And she grabs them like to adjust them. Vicki says, it looks like you have two oranges that are lopsided. And Shannon's laughing and Archie's just looking on like these dos amigos. So with the $75,000, we know what that's for. Remember when it came out, John said that the $75,000 was money that he lent Shannon for a facelift. And Shannon was saying it wasn't a loan. But I do believe that Shannon has agreed to pay him, if I'm not mistaken, because we talked about that some months back when it first came out on the YouTube channel. So, but yeah, we know it's for the facelift. And I feel like Shannon just immediately went back to when Alexis Bellino's ex-husband, Jim, sued her and how she ended up winning, but she ended up spending $300,000, which could have paid for probably two or at least one of her daughter's education for the 4 years. And the thought of that again, like I'll probably be over there like, it would be coming out of both ends. Because no matter how much money you make, to me, it's still like flushing money down the toilet, right? Especially if it truly wasn't a loan. If he gave that to her because they were dating, child be throwing up sick. Let's get to Jen and Ryan. Child, they at their home and they are going to Vegas. Jen says she needs to learn how to do eyelashes and she's trying to put them on. And basically, Ryan says they don't look good. She holds up a dress and says, do you like this for the concert? He says it looks great. It's going to look even better on the side of my bed. Listen, I love sex talk as much as the next person. You saying little things to me, but every time we see Ryan, every time, it's like this walking Ed Hardy advertisement. That's what he looks like. You remember Ed Hardy and the trucker hats. I used to rock that Ed Hardy perfume with the pink bottle. I ain't gonna lie to you. I thought about getting that again because it smelled so good. But anyway, forget that you heard that. Jen says, so are we saying that I can't post pictures in Vegas? And Ryan says, why? And Jen says, because everybody will be judgy pants because my Brooke is going to Vegas. Ryan said, yeah, but they're going to be judging anyway. Jen says, Jen says, you don't let me pay for anything ever. So she was letting the audience know, my man take care of me. He don't let me pay for nothing. So basically, this trip that I'm going on, the stuff that I have, it's not me using money I should be using to pay bills. It's my men. Okay. My men don't let me pay for nothing, not a thing. She tells Ryan, Emily took another jab last night. They flash back to Emily. So Jen had on Emily's coat. Emily says to Jen, is that my coat? And Jen says, yeah. Emily said, and Jen looked cute. They looked like they were having fun. Emily says, you look like you have money. And then Jen was quick. Jen says, I don't. And Emily says, I know. I said, girl, see, this is what I mean. I'm trying to appeal to I'm because why? What was that necessary? Now I said, now see, if Jen were to come back at Emily and take jabs at something that she's insecure about, then she'd be balled up on the floor crying and screaming and shaking and throwing up. What you think your man, because you was talking about Shane, if something happened to y'all, he would be leaving you, what, for somebody that looked like me? See, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. But that was just unnecessary. That was so unnecessary. She has got a hard on for Jen and for Heather Dubrow. So Jen says, if Emily fell in a hard spot, I don't feel like people would be like, oh, Emily's broke and she's going out of town. Now, I will say that, of course, when you don't know the full story, you're looking at it like, she broke. She couldn't pay her rent. She got evicted. The boyfriend took over the payment, and now she's in Vegas looking all glam. And, one could say, well, she could say, well, Ryan, how about you take that money that you're going to spend on me and pay my bills? One could say that, but maybe she's like, maybe in her mind, she doesn't equate it to that. She's like, he's going to Vegas. He wants to take me. He's going to spend this money. Like, this money is set aside to be spent on me, not my, but maybe it's not computing in Jen's mind that she could say that to him, but just like, what? He's taking me on vacation. I'm not paying for it. It's his money, instead of that money could be used to cover some of these bills. The two probably aren't connecting in her brain. So Jen says, if we were married, people wouldn't even think about that. In her confessional, Jen says, I'm constantly judged by the group because I moved in with my boyfriend, because my house is still big and my car is still nice. I said, now, Jen. And they seem to want to criticize everything I do and every penny I have or don't have. So back in the scene, Ryan says, look, I will tell you this, bank accounts come and go. Child. Bank accounts come and go. Money, okay. Bank accounts come and go, but being rich in your soul and in your spirit and who you are as a person. Jen interrupts him and says, obviously they come and go, like meaning the bank accounts. Ryan says, I would say, and Jen says, let it go. And Ryan says, yeah, let it go. These are her issues, meaning Emily. Jen says, it doesn't feel good. And then she starts crying. And I get what she's saying. She said, she thinks she's just really hyper a little bit. She's a little bit hypersensitive to where she sits at in life, and to feel like she's not equivalent to the women in her life pisses her off. So I get that you're on this show with these women that have money, and it can kind of play on your self-esteem. Like, I'm not even equal to them. I don't have nothing, like, on my own. I have nothing. Watching these women, even if they married into wealth, they still have built stuff on their own. Gina, is coming up out of the mud in that hole that she was in financially when after her divorce. So now here I am sitting among these women on this show on television, and I'm feeling like I'm not equal. And I feel like that's probably too why she still continues to get the glam and wear the clothes and the lashes, because that's almost like that's the thing I have going for me, my looks, my body. And that doesn't make her feel completely beneath them. You know what I mean? I feel like that. So Ryan says, you're going through chaos right now. Jen says, I know my head, I know in my head there's not a lot of space. Mm-mm. No, Taria. Ryan says, I feel that. And in her confessional, Jen says the yoga studio that she is in partnership with other people opened during C19. So they worked out a modified rent with their landlord at the time that was not in writing. Okay. When the new landlord stepped in, they served them with a lawsuit for alleged back rent that they didn't pay during C19. So up pops a clip from an article that reads, RHOC star Jennifer Padranti slapped with $133,000 lawsuit over alleged unpaid rent for yoga studio. Ryan says to Jen, you said that agreement that was previous that you have with the landlord was verbal. Um, and she said basically, yeah, but the new landlords coming in ain't trying to hear that. They're going off of the last written contract. So allegedly, they had a verbal agreement with the old landlords, not a written one. That new landlord came in and said, nope, not over here. We're going back the last contract. And per the the written contract, you ain't paid in all these months. So in her confessional, Jen says her and her partners negotiated an amount and they're making back payments for the back rent that they owed during COVID. Jen says to Ryan, I'm going to have to figure it out, but I'm going to have fun. I don't want to have to think about the studio. Ryan says, you know what I'm ready for? Jen says, no. Then she says, naked French fries. And he says, I can't wait for the bathtub. And then Jen kisses him and he says, French fries and a Diet Coke. So I guess they're going to be in the bathtub eating French fries, drinking Diet Coke, or they're going to be naked in the bed, which I mean, honestly, who doesn't love a French fry? I prefer a regular Coke. So I could like a fresh shower, all lotioned up, whatever, shower in the bed in nice cool sheets with some French fries and a lot of ketchup and a Coke. I'm with Ryan on that. I'm with him. Katie and her. Now I didn't take a lot of notes on this part because I just didn't. Katie and her, now Katie's beautiful, I will say that, and her husband is nice looking. Katie and her husband go out to dinner. Matt, they talk about how when she first met Matt, basically they met, they were supposed to go out to dinner after a 16-hour shift. She went home, basically dragged herself out, got ready, put on makeup. He didn't show up when she reached out, or when because they didn't say who reached back out to who, but basically when she talked to him again, he said he stood her up because he was tired at that time, but they continued to talk. She was going through a divorce and he was patient with her and waited. Okay. She thought about, then she talks about the golf outing that she's planning for that weekend. And she thought about calling it drinking and driving, like the driving range and drinking. But they flash back. Oh, Shannon was at the nail spot too. They flash back to her saying that. And Heather was like, flashback to the nail shop. And Heather was like, you might want to consider changing the name. And you could, and Shannon laughed. It was funny though, because I got it. As soon as she said it, I got it, like the drinking and driving. But yeah, you might want to change that name. She also talks about her being adopted and that her and Jen, she really likes Jen. Her and Jen had a conversation because, Jen's son is adopted. And she thinks that it's great that Jen is taking the time to talk to her son about his culture, his feelings around it, because he does look different, and trying to get him involved or learn more about his culture because her parents didn't do that. And she doesn't fault them for it. They just didn't know any better. And Matt says he believes that her parents did the best that they could. And Katie says they probably didn't want her to feel differently. You know what I mean? Like they didn't want her to feel othered, pretty much. She didn't say those words, but that's what I'm saying. They didn't want her to feel othered. So they didn't bring it up because that was the thing to do, right? We're going to make you feel it. We're not going to point out your difference. We're going to make you feel, like you are no different. So I thought that was interesting for her to talk about or what have you. And Matt tells her quite a circle of friends. And she says, yep, just getting to know Orange County here. I think she brought up Heather and at Sutton's party in that instance. But again, I didn't really take notes because the most interesting thing to me was hearing her perspective on how Jen is going about her son and trying to get him, making sure that he's okay, and, you know, taking an active role in making sure that he's okay. So now we at Gina's house, Katie and Gina. Katie goes to Gina's house and she brings gifts for the kids. Gina asks Katie, does she want coffee? And then tells her she had a busy day. And then she had a Zoom. So basically her kids, everybody's at Travis's. Gina says Travis lives up the road, and that her and Travis are good. That's what she tells Gina. Me and Travis are good. I mean, that's what she tells Katie. Gina tells Katie her and Travis are good. In her confessional, Gina says it's really weird to spend the night in her house without Travis. It's lonely. They show a flashback of Gina being at home at night. And I was like, look at them. It really is at night, because I was seeing that window in, you know, that was on screen. It was her in her bed. Then she had a window and I was looking. So let me see if it's reflecting like it's really dark outside, or is they lying to us? But it was dark. She was in, her dog was in her bed, and she said there's too much room in the bed and she misses Trav. She said it feels like they broke up and it feels like crap. It's not great. So then she tells Gina, you want to go? I mean, she asked Katie, I think, do you want to go upstairs or somewhere else in the house? And she said that she's got a contractor coming over because two of her kids want to do like a split room and a track. I wasn't quite sure what she meant. So now we see we're at Tamara's casita, because Tamara has a casita where her mom, she has a house and a casita. And Tamara's mom used to stay in the casita. Emily arrives and they look at the mark on the wall, and Tamara says that's where the headboard used to be. And they show the flashback from last season of Tamara and Eddie talking to her mom, and her mom, Tamara saying, you know, your boyfriend, I forget his name, comes over a lot. And the mom says, you know, the first time we had sex was on Eddie's birthday. And Eddie says, happy birthday to me. So Tamara asks Emily, does she want something to drink? And Emily says, yes. Do you have coffee? And Emily then sees, I guess, some THC on the counter and says, I want to try one of these. Can you mix espresso and THC? Tamara says, yeah, you might not feel anything. And so they go outside. It is beautiful in Tamara's backyard. Absolutely gorgeous. And that snack plate looked really good too. So Emily takes a drink. Tamara says, how's your drink? And Emily says, it's good, but is this TCH? I just don't know why I feel like everything, it's almost like how I feel with Tamara is how I feel with Emily. Everything is for the show. Is this TCH? Girl, stop. You know good and well she said THC. But then again, maybe she had drank so much by that time she was high. I'm going to give her, because you know I don't be giving Emily nothing. I'm going to give her a little. And Tamara says THC. And Emily says, is that pot? And Tamara says, the devil's lettuce. And Emily says, yeah, and you're the devil, bitch. So they flash back to last season where Tamara and Emily had made up and says, I'm glad we're friends. And Emily says, I'm glad we are too. And they cheers. And Emily says, cheers to you, you devil, bitch. What I think is interesting is Tamara and Emily's relationship, and then Emily and how she treats Heather, and now how she's kind of going for Jen. Tamara said that Emily looked like Shrek in the midst of her really not feeling good about herself in her body and all of that, and feeling insecure about her weight and being around all the other women and going to Tamara's gym. And remember when Emily went to Tamara and Eddie's gym and they weighed her? She said the weight wasn't supposed to be displayed online. I don't know if that has anything to do with Tamara. That was probably production, but Tamara called that woman Shrek and had a lot to say about her. Clearly, we know why she called her Shrek, right? And you and Tamara were able to move forward, which is a good thing. We definitely glad that Tamara had apologized and they moved forward. But Heather never did that to you. And yet you have such a hard on for her. Moving on. Tamara brings up Gina and says, you know, basically she was shocked that Gina had an issue with them becoming friends, and they show a flashback to Heather's brunch, and Gina's joking to Tamara saying, yo, you're stealing my friend. And Tamara's like, I want to be friends with everybody. Emily says, me too. But then she says, Emily was joking. Then she tries to kind of stir it a little more, since Emily was like, nah, she was joking. She then says, well, Gina and Katie are getting close. So then she said Gina is hanging out with Katie. So now we're back to Katie and Gina. Katie brings out these outfits. Her friend has a line of clothing, and she was going to gift the ladies clothing. So she's holding up this black dress, and Gina's face is so funny. And you could tell she's not feeling it. And in her confessional, Gina says, I've never been accused of having a poker face, and I'm almost hoping that Katie can read my mind so that I don't have to wear this outfit. Katie says, I think Heather's going to like this dress. And it just came out of Gina's mouth. She was like, really? Katie then pulls out a white one and says, here's the white one. And Gina says, oh, I love that one. Katie asks her to try it on. So Gina tries it on and says, thank you for bringing this, because honestly, it's one less thing I have to worry about, meaning the outfit for golf. Katie then says, Heather texted me and said, I heard you're giving us clothing. And I said, but you don't have to wear it. It's a gift. I feel like Katie is really trying to have something with Heather, like a bit of an issue. Like, did somebody tell her if you come in and have conflict, then you're sure to get screen time if you have conflict with one of the women? Because this just is like a lot. So just let the conflict happen naturally, girl. It will. Heather will give you something, I'm sure. Gina then walks out and says, can I talk to you about Heather? I want to talk about this paparazzi. And when Gina comes out in the white dress and the black sweater, I did think that outfit was really cute, and it looked really cute on her. It fit her good. Gina says, can I talk to you about this paparazzi situation? Katie says, yeah. Katie says, I thought it was silly. And Gina says, yeah, I know that. But Heather's not going to think it's silly and light. They then show Tamara and Emily is saying, you know what bothers me? When those photos about Heather and Terry, and those photos in Heather and Terry at Disneyland, she was acting like she didn't do that. And Tamara was like, I knew it. I knew they were obviously staged. In her confessional, now we're at Katie's confessional. Katie says, Heather is with Terry, and he's like hugging her, and it's like a prom pose. So then they do like a split screen of Emily and Tamara doing the movements that Terry and Heather were doing at Disneyland. And then you hear Katie's voice in a voiceover saying, oh, like when Heather was pointing, like, it's a bird, it's Mickey Mouse, it's silly. Tamara is in her confessional and says Heather loves her picture taken. She loves going to places like Craig's where there's paparazzi outside. So now we're back with Emily and Tamara. And Emily says to Tamara, and I guess she was talking about Katie's paparazzi friend. He says she does it like a lot, like often. I'm assuming that's who she was talking about. Like maybe Katie told her that's what her friend that's head of paparazzi said. She said Katie told her that the head of my notes again. Maybe the head of paparazzi told her that. Tamara said, I think that's why she likes LA. And in her confessional, Tamara says, I think she thinks that's good for her career. And that's fine. A lot of celebrities do it. I personally don't give a ish. Good. We're back with Gina and Katie, and Gina says it was past some stupid rumor about Heather and Terry. But then beyond that, Tamara accused Heather of staging the paparazzi photos, and Heather got really mad at Emily for not defending her. And Heather obviously denied it. Gina says, so I just don't know what to do in this situation, but I just know that Heather's going to be pissed. They cut back to Tamara and Emily, and Tamara says, I feel like when someone gets really mad, like they're guilty. That means you've been guilty a lot. Like when you ran and said, you will never see my face again. Remember when she got real mad? Cussed Alexis clean out. Remember? And a couple of other incidents. So there's a lot of things that you clearly been guilty over, Miss Tamara, my friend. Anyway, Emily says it's funny when and Tamara cuts her off and says, no, it's funny when Heather Dubrow gets caught. That's what it is. Emily says, that's what it is. She says she wants to, in her confessional, Emily said, it's a little bit of vindication. And I also would like to see I would also like to see Fancy Pants to get caught with her fancy pants around her ankles for once, because I would find that amusing. Girl, I'm sorry, y'all. No, I'm not sorry. Let me stop saying that. I teach my daughter to not say I'm sorry all the time. Like if someone bumps into you, oh, I'm sorry. Like women don't always have to say sorry. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But Emily is insecure, and there's something about Heather that makes her insecure. And I believe it's because the way Heather has chosen to live her life and her standards and what she likes or doesn't like, and maybe almost like how Jen feels being around the women, feeling like she's not equal to them. In Emily's mind, for whatever reason, Heather makes her feel that way. And so she's taking that out on Heather because all this smoke she got for Heather is so unnecessary. Like, so unnecessary. Anyway, Tamara says to Emily, I'm so glad I don't worry about that ish like that. That's why I love Big Bear. There's no paparazzi there. Emily says, no, but I have a number you can call if you would like to tell them that you'll be in Big Bear. Tamara says, no, I'm good. We're back with Gina and Katie. Katie says, here's my perspective. Yes, I thought it was silly, and that's why I first told you before I met any of these girls. She says, now the newest thing, I have a friend, and they show a picture of her and Cynthia Bailey. And she said, Cynthia, I just saw the other day for lunch. And Heather is like new to this social circle she's in. And I think she moved to LA. I think she's trying to, and then Gina interrupts and says, you think she feels protective of her LA crew? And Katie says, I do. Then she says, anyway, Cynthia posted, wait a minute. Yeah, I think she moved to LA. Oh, I'm sorry. I said that already. She said, I think she moved to LA too. And Gina says, you think she feels protective of her LA crew? Katie says, I do. Cynthia then posted a picture with Heather. They show a picture of Erin from the Real Housewives of New York, Cynthia, Crystal Kung Minkoff, formerly of Beverly Hills, and Heather. Cynthia says to Katie at their lunch, hey, I was at this thing. Heather was invited too. And when I walked in, the first thing Heather did was, when I walked in, Heather made a beeline for me. And the first thing she said was, do you know Katie? Wait, let me get it right. Nice to meet you. How do you know Katie Janella? And wanted to know everything about me. And that was the only question she asked her. And that's the only thing she wanted. So in her confessional, Katie says, I do think a lot of weird things have happened between Heather and I. And I hope that when I approach Heather with this, maybe we can move on. Gina says, just talk to her. I'm nervous now because everybody knows. Because I'm friends with Heather, I want you to have an opportunity to talk to her. And I think that's a great thing for you to do. But if you don't, I'm going to tell Heather. Now, look, I feel like this. She's trying to make it seem like Heather was trying to dig. She walked up to Cynthia and said, nice to meet you. How do you know Gina Canella? Or Gina Canella, Lord, the names. Katie Janella. I can see if I'm in this social circle and I feel like me and you were cool, then again, I have to stop, because if that was the first time she met Cynthia, maybe Heather thought she could say that to her, like, we're housewives, what have you. Cynthia will know where I'm coming from, because who doesn't want to know who the new girl on the cast is? And it's not about digging up dirt. It's about finding out, about her. What does she do? What does her husband do? Blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? I would want to know that too. So I can see Heather being like, hi, Cynthia, I'm Terry, because we know they know of each other. They're in this housewives world. So we know they know of each other. They just may not have been friends, but now Heather's in this social circle, right? So I can see Heather being like, oh my God, you're friends with Katie. She's about to be on our show. Do you know her? I can legit see that, because I can see myself doing that. Now, maybe I wouldn't have done it if it's the first time meeting, but it's not weird to me. You know what I mean? That she did it. Now we're at Shannon's house trying to put on self-tanner while she has a white skirt on, child. And she says, oh man, this is already uneven. They show half a brown leg. And Shannon says, isn't this pretty? No, Shannon, it wasn't. Gina and Emily are on the phone on FaceTime talking about Jen being in Vegas. Gina says, oh my God, did you see Jen in Vegas? And Emily says, I don't even know what to say about that. Don't say nothing, because you've said enough. But also I have to say, like, because they don't know what's going on. They're only looking from the outside in, and Jen crying about not having this, not having that. And then, child, we see you in Vegas. Gina said, maybe instead of going to Vegas for the weekend, you go to work and you make a payment and you don't post it on Instagram. She then said, how much you want to bet that Jen paid for professional makeup for this golf thing? Emily says, oh, I'm sure she is. I thought this was funny. And then they flashed to Jen getting her makeup done saying, it's too expensive. Golf is expensive. Cha, I said, now, Jen, you and Ryan was posting about this fear. You ain't got no money, child. And now you sitting in the makeup chair getting your makeup done. Maybe they bartered. Maybe they traded something. Who knows? Maybe she traded makeup for a post. Who knows? We're at Katie's golf event. Katie and her husband, Matt, child, let me wrap it up because the sun is going down. It's getting a little dark over here, and I don't want to get up and turn the other light on. Katie's golf event. Katie and her husband, Matt, show up. And in her confessional, she says golf is traditionally very conservative, among other things, etiquette. The balls that they're talking about all the time are not necessarily the balls that she's talking about. So she's meeting the ladies. She said she's thinking golf balls. They're thinking John Jansen's balls. We then meet the golf instructor, Lion. Katie tells him none of these girls play golf. And he says, okay, we're going to tune them up today. Tamara arrives first, then Heather with a bottle of Dom. And it looks like Gina is arriving at the same time, but because they have a split screen, but I think that's editing because then they show later on Heather greeting Gina. So I don't know, but we know how they do these intros. In her confessional, Heather said, listen, I have 4 children. I've done my time with miniature golf. She gives Katie the bottle and says, happy golf, enjoy the Dom. And Katie says, oh my gosh, can we crack it? And Heather says, yes. In her confessional, Heather says, I like diamonds, champagne. Golf is not my favorite pastime, to be honest. Katie then tells Tamara and Gina that the prize for that day, whoever the winner is Prada sunglasses. And Gina says, I love golf. Katie says, well, you better be good at it today, basically, if you want to win. Emily is arriving, and she says in her confessional, I'm not a golf person. I'm excited about the golf cart with the drinks. Don't blame you. Shannon then arrives, and Shannon was looking cute to me. She was smiling, and Tamara just looks at her. And in her confessional, she says, my plan has always been to be cordial to Shannon. I can be your golf friend. Tamara then says, I don't do the golf course. So golf friends means we don't have to talk at all. Way too much. Anyway, Heather goes to greet Gina and gives her a hug. Heather says, I've been meaning to catch up with you. Are you okay? They have a convo to decide about Travis. Now remember, earlier when Gina was with Katie, she said that her and Travis were really good. Gina then says to Heather, it's up and down. It's hard with this stuff with Trav. He moved out. She said last night was horrible because he's basically like breaking up with me. Then he was really like, this is selfish. And I guess meaning her staying with him and everything that he's going through, he felt like maybe he was being selfish to her. That's what I took out of it. He said, I don't ever want you to be unhappy. It's not fair to you. Then Heather cut in and said, which makes you love him more. And Gina says, right. I was like, let's just let it settle. You can break up with me 3 months from now, i.e., you can break up with me 3 months from now when filming is done. But right now, I'm going to need the camera to catch all this. Anyway, she said, but give it a little time, really. She says in her confessional, she does understand that this was her decision. And she understands this is something that she feels and that she knows and understands that it hurts Travis. She then tells Heather it's a lot of emotional up and down to go through on a daily basis. Back in her confessional, she said, I have to be right now the mentally stable, positive one in the relationship in order to make this work. Now, as Gina and Heather were talking, Katie introduced Shannon, Jen, and Emily to her husband, Matt. Then Heather and Gina come back to the group. Matt walks up to Heather and says, Matt. And Heather says, hi, Matt, Heather. He says, nice to meet you. And she says, how are you? And he gives her a putter and she says, thank you. Tamara then says, this is Katie's husband, right? And then Heather says, oh, hi, nice to meet you. I did not know that. Very nice to meet you. Tamara says, I didn't know it either. I thought he was a golf pro. And then Heather turns around and says, John? And at first I thought they were like making fun because John Jansen plays golf. So I was like, are they like calling him a John? And then Tamara laughs and Heather says, his name is John, or asks, his name is John. And Tamara says, no, Matt, which is hilarious considering when you put everything together, Katie insisting that Heather knew who Katie and Matt were when she saw them at Sutton's party. And now they're showing Heather not even remember the guy's name. So I just thought that was funny. Um, Emily ends up winning in golf. It was close, I think, between her and Gina. Emily puts on the Prada sunglasses, and Heather says, "Take the tag off." And Emily says, "No, I'm going to leave it on." In her confessional, Jen says, "Normally I would be stoked that Emily is so athletic and so good, but she's not been very nice to me. So why the hell does she keep on winning everything?" I said, "Well, that's fair. I get it." Katie tells Heather, "I heard that you love hot dogs. Child, it made me want a hot dog. I might have to have hot dogs for dinner tonight." Um, I'm going to tell y'all this for whatever reason, in case any of us are in the same space and time together and it requires you to get me a hot dog. I love my hot dog with a lot of ketchup, and one thin line of mustard. That's it. Bun, hot dog, a lot of ketchup, one thin line of mustard. Okay. Okay. Um, Katie tells Heather, "I heard that you love hot dogs, so we have a hot dog bar." In her confessional, Katie says, "What better way to show her I'm not a threat than to serve things she loves the most?" Now, in her confessional, Heather says, "I do love hot dogs, especially pigs in a blanket." My question to Katie is, a threat to what? Who are you a threat to, and why would you be a threat? Because now it's coming off like you're saying that you entering this group is a threat to Heather. But what would the threat be? Heather doesn't know. Like, would the way she's making it seem is almost like I'm a threat to Heather because I know that she's lying, but Heather doesn't even know that you're going around telling people she's lying. So what kind of threat would you be to her? First, you said she's a liar, and now she's threatened by you. She's threatened by you exposing a lie that what she doesn't know anything about. I don't know. I'm confused. Tamara says to Emily, "I think I'm going to tell Heather." They're talking. So Heather sees them talking and walks over and is like, "What? What's up? What? Tell me. What are y'all talking about?" Tamara tells Heather about what Katie has been telling the entire group about the paparazzi. Emily says that Katie says she has proof, and Heather says, "Good, bring the proof." I said, "Come on, nails," the way Heather was moving her hands. If y'all are watching the YouTube, then you can see this. Go on over to YouTube, type in WeGo, WEIGO podcast, so you can see it. Katie is talking to Jen, Shannon, and Gina, and Jen says, "Does Shannon know anything about?" Jen says to Katie, and to the group, does Shannon know anything about girls' night the other night? I said, "Go ahead, Jen, doing your job. You learn quick." Katie says, "Basically, I didn't know this was an issue last year for you girls." And Shannon says, "What was an issue?" And Katie says, "Heather and the paparazzi photos." And Shannon says, "Disneyland?" And Katie said, "A friend of mine runs the paparazzi photos, and she called my friend and says she's going to be here on top of some other things that have been going on." Um, I'm kind of like, "Are you telling the truth? Are you not telling the truth?" And Shannon said, "You mean the tagging of the photos?" Katie says, "That's just one. She reached out to a couple of my friends to get info on me, seeing them at a party and asking now, oh, child, seeing them at a party and asking them, 'Hey, what you know about Katie?' is different than reaching out to someone to me. Again, it's one thing to ask them questions, but she saw them at a party and asked them about you. Now she's reaching out. Girl, come on, Katie, now. Come on. We got to wrap this up. Now, Shannon did say, and now to Katie's credit a little bit, Shannon did say that she did that to me when I became a part of this group. I do think all the housewives probably do that. Um, and Katie says, "Yeah, I'm not threatening to anybody." Here we go again with the threatening child. Jen said, "Just go up and say, 'Can I talk to you for a minute?'" Gina says, "Yeah, put it to rest." And Shannon says, "Good luck with that." Katie says, "Oh God, Shannon." Gina says, "Rest in peace." And Katie's like, "Rest in peace, Gina." And Gina says, "Well," Jen says, "We just hope you come back." In her confessional, Shannon says, "Katie, today will be a big learning lesson." I want them to wrap it up. Okay. Katie approaches Heather. I thought this was funny. Katie says, "Hi." And Heather says, "Hey." By this time, she knows what Katie's been saying about her. Katie says she wanted to talk. Katie says to Heather she wanted to talk to her because she feels like there's a weird looming thing between them. Now, see, to me, this is what made it even more disingenuous. Heather hasn't done anything to you in this group. She hasn't tried to shade you in the group, hasn't, other than kind of asking, like, "Are all your kids by your husband?" That was kind of like, girl, what? but she hasn't really done anything to like shade you. So why would there be a weird looming thing? I feel like she said that to create an issue to have a story. Anyway, Heather said, well, we didn't have a weird looming thing, except all I know is that you're talking to all my friends about me and saying that I'm calling the paparazzi and you have all this proof and that I'm talking about you to people. And there's a lot of untruths here. Meanwhile, Shannon, Tamara, Jen, Gina, and Emily are all talking about it and watching from the side. And Tamara's, child, if you didn't know that this was going to happen, stop. Tamara says, oh, I just told Heather. And Shannon was like, you told her? So then Katie says to Heather, well, it came up the other night on our girls' night. So it's like letting her know we was talking about you at a place where you wasn't invited. At least I don't think she's invited. Tamara never really said. But anyway, so Katie said, you know, it started with Sutton's Christmas party. And Gina had told me that she called you and Terry, and you kind of went looking through me and Matt on Instagram. And Heather says, going through, not going through, but looking at, like, yeah. So Heather did admit, yeah, I pulled up your page. Pretty much, I pulled up your page and looked at it. And so we saw you. And so Katie continues. So we saw you at Sutton's Christmas party. You turned around and you stared at Matt and I, and then you turned back around again. Heather says, oh my God, you expect me to see you online after looking at your Instagram and recognize you? Katie says, you legit saw us. Now, Katie, the argument isn't whether Heather saw you, because we know she made eye contact. Now, the argue is, did she recognize you, and is she just acting like she did it? It could kind of be. Maybe she did, you know. Sure, I didn't think I was going to be on here this long. So maybe Heather was like, she looks a little bit familiar. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like if you looked at it long enough, you probably would know. So after that, Heather says, I have no recollection of that, like looking at you and turning around. Like, I have no recollection. Katie said, even my husband remembers that. Then you go to two of my friends that live in LA and you try to get information on me. Heather says, well, you're wrong. In her confessional, Heather says, I have been nothing but nice to Katie. I barely know her. What she say? I barely know her. She's like not even a blip, honey, on my radar. Katie says to Heather, I came into this group like I know you lied. I saw in the press that you alerted paparazzi. My dear friend runs the paparazzi photos for all publication. So then Heather says, show me the proof, Katie. Katie said, I have a screenshot of the text. Heather says, great. I'm going to tell you something. I've never called the paparazzi in my life. Katie said, you never alerted them? Heather said, no, I've never done that. Katie said, so he lied? I would be like, who? Because I don't know your friend. I don't know if they lie or not. Anyway, Heather said, I don't know who you're talking about. So they flash to the other ladies, and Shannon says, wait, why did you guys tell her? Tamara says, because I felt like she needed to know. Emily and her hot dog have the nerve to say, how long does this have to go on? Girl, shut up. Anyway, Heather says on the side note, I do have to admit, Emily looked cute in her outfit too. I like the bow in her hair. I've been considering getting me a little bow. Anyway, so Emily says, how long does it have to go on? Heather says to Katie, on the lives of my children, I have never called paparazzi. Child, all the ladies. In her confessional, Katie says, I'm telling the truth. I have no reason to scream because I have facts and a receipt. Katie Heather was not screaming anyway, unless you define screaming differently. They show a flash on the screen of a text message. And in the text message, you could clearly see that it was a screenshot. Like, they showed the bottom of the screenshot of a TikTok, which Katie did say she screenshot a TikTok. And she sent it to someone and said, settle this for me. Did Heather Dubrow call Paps to come take pics of her and her husband in public? And the response says yes. Katie says, I can have him pull up that you called him. Heather said, there's apps that can make that happen, which, I mean, that's true. Katie says, oh, do you think he would do that? Now, Katie, again, we don't know your friend. I don't know your friend to think he would do that unless Heather does know him and she did call the Paps, just saying. Listen. Gina is in her confessional and said, this is exactly what I didn't want to happen. And I feel at this point, I should just duck and cover. Heather said, just so you know. And Katie says, he's not even on social media because he doesn't want to be known for doing this. Heather says, Katie, I have no worries in my body about this at all. At all. Katie said, listen, I didn't think you would have worries. I thought it was silly that you would do this. And coming to this group, I knew you lied. Heather said, stop saying the word lied because I didn't lie. Who, child, this should be done. Like when you apply for NYU performing arts, Tish, like you have to do a piece. And I feel like this should be one of them. Tamara says, they flash back to the ladies. Tamara says, should we all just collectively? And then she starts gesturing her shoulders over there. Shannon says, oh, this is not Shannon says to Jen, this is just not a good situation. Heather says to Katie, with Emily standing there, because Emily's standing there now, when you come into a friend group and then all the other ladies start coming around, when you come into a friend group, what would really be great is to make friends and just try to meet people and understand them. Tamara placed the hot dog down on the table and says, I brought you a dog. Child, Heather looked at that dog and said, I'm good. And then Heather finishes saying, it would be great to meet people and understand them for who they are. Katie said, I was literally going, wait. Oh, Katie said, I was literally going to them, the other ladies, everyone but Heather, like, hey, I know this. What do I do? Tamara says, I will say Katie never went for your character. Heather says, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. Like, that's what bothers me. And I'm going to say this. Tamara, you saying Katie never went for Heather's character. If Katie is coming in saying, I know you lied, because let's go back. Katie did say to Heather, I came in this group knowing you lied. Mind you, you knew she lied about something that you had nothing to do with last season. So like I said, you researching her too, but that is coming for her character because you're basically saying she's a liar because you know she lied about this. So that kind of could be considered coming for, her character because she's repeatedly saying that she lied. In her confessional, Heather says, the things that Katie is accusing me of and all the things that she's doing. I'm not digging things up on Katie. Katie is digging things up on me. I agree. Katie then says to Heather, I want to see if there's anything that you have harboring against me. Girl. Katie, and so Heather says, I don't even know you, Katie. Katie says, correct. What? And let's just say Heather was digging up things, right? Let's say she was reaching out to people. What information would she have found out that would make her harbor something against Katie? Is there something I'm missing? For Katie to say, I want to know if you're harboring things against me. I could dig up information on a new castmate, and that doesn't mean I'm harboring anything against you because we've never had any interactions for me to harbor anything against you, unless one of your friends said that you've been talking about me. Otherwise, what would I have to harbor against you? So that to me didn't make any sense. Like some of the things Katie said, it's like, okay, I could see a little bit, but the harboring thing is like, nah, girl. Mm-mm. So Katie says, I want to know if there's anything you have harboring against me. Heather says, I don't even know you. And Katie says, correct. Heather says, but now I don't know that I want to. And Katie says, oh, well, that's your choice. In her confessional again, Heather says, I don't call the paparazzi. Katie has them by first name on a text message. This girl's obsessed with me. It's crazy. Now, Heather, I don't think she's obsessed, but I do think she's trying to create an issue or take this little thing and create an issue with you to kind of cement her footing on the show, to have something going on the show, to be involved. Sometimes new housewives come in, they don't know these ladies. They just know the person that brought them in. So they may not have any conflict, or they may think they're not going to have any conflict. But she came in knowing what happened last season and was like, oh, okay. So again, Heather is right, though. You got the paparazzi by first name in your phone. Now, one could say, well, that's her friend. Yeah. But you're sending them a headline about me saying, did Heather do this? You're looking for information about me. So it's like you were looking for information about me before maybe I was looking for information about you. I don't know. And even if they both did that, Katie was coming in on the new cast, so I could see her doing her work too. Remember season 1 of Potomac, Ashley Darby had looked up everybody. That's how she knew Robin had 25 cents or dollars. I'm sorry. Robin and Juan had $25 in the bank. She said she researched them all. So maybe Katie was doing the same thing, but let's not act like you doing it is different than Heather looking you up on Instagram, child. Let the issue be, listen, you look me on Instagram, we all do it, but then you look me in my face and ain't speaking. I feel some type of way. You look me in my face, didn't speak after you looked me up on Instagram and talked to my friends. That's my issue with you, Heather. You could have spoke. Let that be the thing. But this Disney, like, come on, girl, come on. Anyway, again, Heather, I don't think she's obsessed with you, but I think she is guilty of the things that she's accusing you of. Now, Heather says to the, wait, Heather then says to the group, and I loved it because it was like, now what? All this has been said, now what? She said, this has been a lovely day. And Katie laughs and Heather says, enjoy the Dom, which is what she told her at the beginning. Gina says, I'm so glad that all my friends are friends. Katie says, I got to get all the bags, the gift bags to everybody. Now she's walking away. She's still got Heather's name in her mouth and is like, I don't know if Heather will take mine, but I'm going to give it to her. Girl. Heather says, all right, well, I'm going to go meet Terry for dinner. So Heather grabs a bag and says to Katie, thanks for the putty. It was very nice meeting you and your husband. Katie says, thanks for the Dom. Thank you. Heather walks off. Katie picks up that big old box of Dom and says, I'm going to take my Dom and go. This was the highlight for me. I just love the backdrop and all of it. Child, Gina walks across the grass in this beautiful setting, puts on her glasses. I'm sorry, the greens. Gina's walking across the greens in her cute outfit, puts on her glasses, and all you hear is a voiceover say, that was dumb. I said, I agree, Gina. I agree. And that, folks, was, I believe, episode, was it 3 or 4? Let me get it right. That was episode 4 of season 18 of The Real Housewives of Orange County. Y'all, I hope you enjoyed the recap. I am loving this episode so far. Let me know what y'all think. Are y'all loving it? Because I felt like it was good coming out of the gate. And so far, it's still keeping the momentum. And again, this is good old fashioned housewives drama, the old school, type of housewives drama. And I'm loving it. All right, y'all. I love y'all so much. And I will talk to y'all later. See ya. Oh, don't forget to like. Well, if you're watching YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, please, again, go over to wherever it is you listen to podcasts or the podcast app on your phone, type in what else is going on. And please, please, y'all, follow the podcast and vice versa. If you're listening on the podcast app, please do your girl a favor. Go over to YouTube, type in WeGo Podcast, WEIGO Podcast. Like, comment, and most of all, subscribe. All right, now for real. I love y'all so much. See ya.